Hi, good morning, future teachers. My name is Jolan, and today I will discuss about child and adolescent development, one of the major subject in education. And of course, this subject will teach us on how to properly approach our student and how to know um, their stage of development so that once we are in the actual teaching we will understand um, our students. Okay, so let me share you my screen. All right, child and adolescent development, and today I will discuss the first subject topic, which is introduction to child and adolescent development. All right. So the first thing we need to know the difference between teacher-centered and student-centered learning. All right. When we talk about teacher-centered learning, um, instructor talks, student listen. All right. That is the actual and that's the normal scenario in the school. All right. So once the teacher talks, the students always listening. They don't have chance to participate in the learning process. But in student-centered learning, instructor models student students interact with instructor and one another. All right. So there's under interaction with regards to student-centered learning. So a teacher serves as a facilitator only. Okay. And of course, the other one is student work alone in teacher-centered, while student-centered learning is students work in pairs, in group, or alone, depending on the purpose of the activity. All right. Um, in this um, uh, in this scene, so the students working together with their classmates so that the learning will pass and share. And of course, the next one is instructor monitors and correct every student utterance. So every time the student commit a mistake, teacher or instructor immediately correct that. While in student centered learning, a student talks without constant instructor monitoring. Instructor provides feedback, correction when question arise. So there's a feedback after student explain the answers. Okay, but not immediately like in teacher-centered learning. All right. And then the next one is to instructors chooses topics and student have some choice of topics. Okay, so and next one is instructor evaluates student learning. So that is normal. So instructor needs to evaluate student learning. But in student-centered learning, not only this teacher should evaluate the learning of the student, but also a student must evaluate his or her learning. Okay. And the last one, classroom is quiet and teacher-centered, and student-centered learning. Classroom is often noisy and busy. Noisy because they are participating or they are sharing their insight about the topics. Okay, let's move on. All right, the first subtopic for this lesson is child development. Okay, refers to the biological, psychological, and emotional changes that occur in the human beings from birth and the end of adolescence as the individual progresses from dependency to increasing autonomy. So when we talk about child development, and I believe that every person, even those have mental deficiency, physical impairment, they in every day they develop themselves. The question is that development is normal? Okay. All right. So there are four concepts in studying child development. First one is child. adolescence, growth, and development. Okay, child refers to a young person who is below the age of puberty and the age of legal maturity, which varies among culture. All right, the United Nations Convention on Rights of the Child defined child as a person below the age of 18 unless the laws of a particular country set the legal age for adulthood younger. Right? Childhood is the period between birth and adolescence. When we talk about child, even here in the Philippines, um, we consider child is the person below 18 years old. In fact, we cannot convict a person committed a crime if that person is below 18 years old because there's a lot of laws protecting our child. Okay. And next one is adolescent. The term adolescent is derived from the Latin word adolescere, which means to grow up into maturity. The term usually connotes to a person developing or turning into the legal age of maturity. Adolescence is a period of transition from childhood to adulthood. So adolescence, this is the stage wherein um, a person wants to become emotionally independent. They wants to establish their own um, identity, their own future. And in this stage, this is a critical stage because um, most of the child during this stage um, there's a conflict between their parents and the child because we cannot understand them during this stage because there's a lot of transition from adulthood from childhood to adulthood. Okay, and the next one is growth, refers to the progressive increase and continuous advancement of the child from birth to maturity. Okay, when we talk about growth, this is a physical changes. Like for example, I remember when I was a farmer in the province, when I plant a tree, every day there's a physical changes. All right, and that changes is called growth, growing. That tree is growing. Okay, and once a child is growing, they become matured as well. Matured or maturity, it refers to the inside changes, their thinking, their emotion. All right. And the next one is development. Development is a gradual and orderly unfolding of the characteristic of the individuals as they go through successive stage of growth. It also implies an increasingly progressive maturity of behavior as well as organization of personality and character. So development. So every time the person grow, matured, of course, the development happen as well. Okay, the second part is importance of child and adolescent growth and development. Child and adolescent growth and development is a study of the physical, psychological, cognitive, and social changes and the factors that influence these changes that children experience and go through from birth to adulthood. It is a study on how children grow, learn, and change over time. So, why we need to know child and adolescent growth and development? For us future teachers, so we need to understand where our student stage right now. Okay, for example, if we are going to teach a high school or senior high school student, it is possible to approach them like a child. No, right? So we need to know their level or their stage right now so that we can approach them appropriately based on their stage of development. All right. And the third part of this lesson is the theories of human development. There are 13 theories that we are going to study today, and we will study that one by one. Okay, the first one is maturationist perspectives or maturational theory. This was developed by Arnold Giselle in 1925. There are three assumptions on this theory. Development has biological basis, good and bad years alternate, body types are correlated with personality development, and maturationists believe that development is a biological process that occurs automatically in predictable, sequential stage over time. So when we talk about automatically, so as long as a child or a person is healthy, every day in their lives, there's a development because development is a biological process that occurs automatically. All right. So, and the implication in this in the classroom is most of the teacher thinks that a child or a student that younger than their classmates is not yet ready to accept the instruction or slow in learning because that is a maturationist. The more you are become matured, um, you will become ready to accept the instruction or to grasp the knowledge that the instructor imparts to you. Okay, that is the maturationist perspective. Okay, let's go to psychodynamic perspective or object relation theory. These theories are descendant of psychoanalytic theory of Sigmund Freud in the late 1880s, concerned about how people understand and represent their relationship with other people. The objects in object relation theory are representation of people, how others are experienced, represented, and remembered by the person doing the objectification. Children motivated primarily by irrational desires generated in their unconscious mind. So, unconscious minds, according to this theory, that is the experiences. Like, for example, their feelings. If the child feel fear, that will affect their development, right? So if the child always fear in something, they tend to do not do something that will affect in the progress of their development. Okay, so motivated primarily by the irrational desires. Okay, and the next one is constructivist or integrationist perspective. Constructivist perspective of readiness and development was advanced by theorists such as John Piaget, Maria Montessori, and Lev Vygotsky. They are consistent in their belief that learning and development occurs when young children interact with the environment and people around them. Okay, so the environment has a biggest or biggest factor in development of the child, right? So according to this perspective or theory, children, once the children interact their environment or engage in their surrounding, they will develop themselves, right? And there are varieties on this constructivism: the active learning, discovery learning, and knowledge building. Okay, constructivists believe that development progresses through several stages as a child is motivated to inquire and to extend understanding and skills through the activities in which they initiate and engage. The more the person engage in the environment, they will become more developed. Okay. The next one is cognitive development perspective. Theorist John Piaget suggested that children think differently than adults and proposed a stage theory of cognitive development. He was the first to note that children plays an active role in gaining knowledge of the world. Children can be thought of as little scientists who actively construct their knowledge and understanding of the world. Little scientists, right? Do you notice that when parents command their children to do that, to do not do that? For example, I am a parent and I tell my child, do not do that, okay? And you imagine and you think that that children followed his or her mother or her parents, and most of the time they did not follow, right? Because they want to experience why my mother don't want me to do this, okay? They play an active role in gaining knowledge, and from that experiences they learn something, and then from that experiment, because we talk about little scientists, they want to become more aware why why it is not my mother wants me to do not do this, okay? So they are a little scientist, okay? And stage theory of intellectual development that included four distinct stages, and according to John Piaget, based on his observation on to his child, the first one is sensory motor stage from birth to age 2. This stage of the child, infant thinks by means of their senses. Okay, and pre-operational stage, children use the new ability to represent objects. Okay, and concrete or operational stage, a child may unconsciously follow the instruction. So according to John Piaget. And the formal operational stage, this begin in adolescence and span into adulthood. This stage, child become able to reason not only about tangible object events, but also about hypothetical and abstract. Okay, so formal operational stage, that is the stage wherein a person able to express their reasoning skills. Okay, and the fifth theory is behaviorist or environmentalist theory. Behavioral theories of child development focus on how environmental interaction is influences behavior. Development is considered a reaction to a reward, punishment, stimuli, and reinforcement. Focuses purely on how experience shapes who we are. So in this theory, most of the child motivated by the rewards and punishment. For example, and the people or the interaction of the environment. For example, if a child do something and then the immediate environment or the surrounding that the child has, or their parents probably, um, give them a reward or recognition, that's the time the child tend to develop more because they are aiming to do something more, right? Because they receive a rewards, right? So the rewards and the punishment has a biggest factor as well in the development of the child. Okay. Environmentalists believe that child environment shape learning and behavior. In fact, human behavior, development and learning are thought of as reaction to the environment. Okay. And the sixth theories is evolutionary perspective. This is the application of the basic principles of Darwinian evolution, particularly natural selection, to explain contemporary development. It assumes that behaviors and cognitions are product of natural selection, pressures operating over the course of evolution, and are characteristic of children's behavior and mind. This perspective theorizes that a child's behavior and personality may be reflected by the basic will to survive and to reproductive and be reproductive. It also suggests that behavior is reflected by the genetic will to survive. So according to this theory, so most of the child characteristic or character is came from their parents because the characteristic of their parents um, it will pass to their offspring. Okay, so the level or the development of um, the child or the person is depend on the genes of the parents. Okay, and the seventh theory is information processing perspective or IP theory. Psychologists involved in the IP movement began to view the brain as a neural computer. The theory is based on the idea that the human processes the information they receive rather than merely responding to stimuli. This perspective equates the mind to a computer which is responsible for analyzing information from the environment. So the child is developed through their through through the through the information that they gathered, like a computer. Once you input something or input in a computer, it will become an output as well. The same in the child. So the information that you input in the minds of the child that will become their output. Okay, and there are three main components of IP theory: the sensory memory, which is refers to what we are experiencing through our senses at a given moment. This sensory memory, this is the input information, okay? While working memory, this is the information that we are going to rehearse or remember every time. This is so-called um, short-term memory. And long-term memory, this is the information that already established in our mind and become remembered in every time, okay? Right. There are three principles of IP theory and instructional model. The first one is the information provided by our environment is constantly processed by the complex series of systems. Second one is the processing system modify the information we gather in systematic ways. The third one is the primary goal of research tasks that delve into information processing is determined which process and brain structures are behind cognitive performance. Okay, a great way for teachers or instructors to practice skills of their learning is to test the following. So future teachers, so we need to evaluate our student. Are they able to focusing skills? Information gathering. Are they able to research and the information, they gather the information that we impart to them? Okay. Are they remember the lesson that we teach? Are they able to organize those information? Okay, so that is the four skills that we need to evaluate in our students. Okay, and the next one is sociocultural perspective. Sociocultural theory grew from the work of seminal psychologist Lev Vygotsky, who believed that parents, caregivers, peers, the culture at large, were responsible for the development of higher order function. Right, right. That is the immediate environment of the child, their parents, caregivers. And actually, if a child grow up in their maid, most of their attitude or most of their learning is based on their maid. Like because maid teach them or develop the children develop because of the immediate environment that they have. And in this theory, there's so-called a zone of proximal development. This is an important concept in sociocultural theory. It is the distance between the actual development level as determined by independent problem solving and the level of potential development as determined through problem solving under adult guidance or in collaboration with more capable peers. So according to this zone of product proximal development, there are there are difficult to understand and um, in part of the child, and they they will understand that or they will master um, that in for example they 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 are not able to do that skills, but with the guidance of their parents, caregivers, peer, they will, right? Because the guidance and encouragement from a person knowledgeable from that skills is very important. Okay. All right. So nine. The ninth theory is developmental or ecological system perspective. Developed by Yuri Bronfenbrenner, he believed that a person's development was affected by everything in their surrounding environment. Okay? It states that everything in the environment surrounding the child affects their development and that each contains roles, norms, and rules that can powerfully shape development. And there are five levels of person's environment. So the micro system, the small unit, this is the immediate environment that they have. And most common example of this are their parents. All right, their family or school, religious institution, neighborhood, and peers. While mesosystem is it is the interconnection between micro system interaction between family and learners. Okay, and while ecosystem involves link between a social setting in which the individual does does have, okay, and the microsystem, a large environment, describes the culture. This is the culture of the particular place. And the chronosystem, the patterning of the environmental events and transition over